All right, mitzvah 175 is the mitzvah that one should immerse in a mikveh to become tahor. Various forms of tumah, you have to immerse in a mikveh. Now nowadays the only requirement for immersion in a mikveh nowadays, which is absolutely a requirement, is for a woman who is a nida. She has to immerse in the mikveh before she becomes permissible to her husband. Men immerse in the mikveh as a custom nowadays. It is not an obligation. The only time halacha Hasidim immerse in the mikveh on a regular basis, there are people who go to the mikveh every day. Men go to the mikveh every day. Men never make a bracha on going into the mikveh. Women make a bracha because they have to go to the mikveh. Men do not have to go. There is no bracha on going to the mikveh. And the only time the halacha says it's a mitzvah to go to the mikveh is on Erev Yom Kippur. On Erev Yom Kippur, the halacha actually says a mitzvah for everybody to go to the mikveh to purify yourself, but you are not obligated. In the Litvische world, there are many that go on Erev Shabbos. Many people go every Friday. There's some who go every day. By the Hasidim, it's certainly a major part of their daily schedule, and so on and so forth. But the obligation is only when it comes to what do you call it for women. Now, the mikveh has to be 40 sa'ahs. A sa'ah is a measure of water. It's not exactly a gallon, but in our terms, let's say it would be 40 gallons to make a kosher mikveh, and it has to be rainwater. That's why there's a connection, and the mikveh is always connected to a pool of rainwater that has gathered, and then it comes into the mikveh through some sort of connecting pipe. And it's very, very complex to make it that it should be a kosher mikveh. You need an expert on mikvahs in order to build a mikveh. But the mikveh is the first thing that's built in a Jewish community. Of all the priorities, you have to build a mikveh. No mikveh, no Jews. So you have to build a mikveh. Plus, the severity of the avera of a man living with his wife, if she's not been to the mikveh, is very severe. Therefore, the mikveh is the first priority, even before a shul or a school or anything else. The mikveh has to be built. Now, you remember we spoke about the number 40? That the number 40 represents the number of renewal. That 40 days on Har Sinai, because the Jewish people are going into a new state, 40 days for the conception of a child, 40 days of the flood when the world has to be renewed. There are several, the number 40 repeats itself. Well, here you have, by no coincidence, that a kosher mikveh has to be 40 sa'ah, because there is a renewal of sort over here. A woman who has become tameh, she goes into a mikveh, there's a renewal, and it always involves any sort of tumah, impurity, always involves loss of life or loss of life potential. So that if you come into contact with a dead body, or if there's a dead rodent, or if a man has had an emission, or a woman has menstruated, all of these represent loss of life or loss of life potential. That's always there in the mikveh. So the mikveh, 40 sa'ahs, represents a form of renewal. Now, what the commentaries say is that it also represents, when is a human being ever totally submerged in fluid? When he's in the stomach. When he's in the mother's stomach. When he's in the mother's stomach, a baby is submerged in fluid. He's totally surrounded by fluid. And then he becomes born new. So there is a concept here of, I hate to use the expression of a born again, right? But you become almost like a born again Jew. You go into the mikveh, you have removed your clothing completely, so you are very similar to a baby who is surrounded by fluid in the mother's stomach, and then the baby comes out, and it's a step of renewal in Judaism. It's always recommended for somebody who is, whatever avera a person may have done, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and a person feels bad, the best thing for a person to do, go to the mikveh, just to give yourself a fresh start. It feels like a person's got a fresh start. I'm turning over a new leaf now. That's one of the things that's recommended. The other thing is, for any avera a person does, they should immerse themselves in the waters of Torah. Torah is the greatest purification. Torah is called a fire, and it's a fire that cleanses. It's like having yourself blowtorched. Now some of these mikvahs in Israel, I've been to some of these mikvahs, they have these boiling hot pools in them. Some of them, the water is warm, or it's cold, or it's just absolutely sizzling. Right? I don't know of any halacha that says that you have to sizzle in the mikvah. The people do it. I guess it's a feel-good thing. Maybe get a little Gehenna to cleanse the sins. I'm not sure exactly what the purpose is. But I've been some of these mikvahs, I can't go into the hot water. It's impossible. And you see these little old Yerushalmer Jews, or Hasidic Jews come walking past, right down into the water, come out red like a tomato. I was once in one mikveh years ago. I was in the mikveh. They have like these 3 pits. So there's the cold, the warm, and the boiling hot. So I start putting my feet in, and I couldn't. It's a mistake, by the way. If you're going to do it, you just got to walk right in. I'm putting my feet in. It's boiling hot. I couldn't. And this little old Hasidic guy walks past me. He goes down into the mikveh, and you just hear the sizzling sound, crackling, sizzling sound as he goes down into the water. Then he sticks his head out of the water, and he yells at the mikveh attendant, says, "Feivel," says in Yiddish, "Was ist keine heiß? Why isn't it hot today?" The water wasn't hot enough. He didn't get fully cooked. So I don't know what the source of that. I don't know any source. You just have to go into a body of kosher, what's called kosher mikveh water. And part of the idea is a land animal is not capable of living in water. So what you're really doing is, when you go into water, what you're doing is you are totally stepping out of your environment. You're totally out of your natural habitat, and you're suppressing, you're immersing in water, again, to show that I'm stepping out of what I was, and I'm now, it's a renewal of sorts. And that's why it's surrounded by this number 40. I just met a guy in the plane. It's the second person I met. The guy I met, he had a student here years ago who was in the American Navy. And he was in at the time, they had set the record, the submarine that had the record for being underwater for the longest period of time was 8 months. Now, on a submarine, I could last in a submarine for about 10 minutes. He was in the submarine for about 8 months. He told me that they have, it's all infrared lights. They got to go through certain testing in order to become that sort of branch of the Navy. And he told me after 8 months that when they came out, they were in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and he was the second guy out when they finally surfaced. He was the second guy out. He told me he felt like when he comes out of the top of the submarine, he said he felt like he was being born. And he comes out, and and you're surrounded by water. There's no land anywhere visible in sight, but it was the first air that they had in 8 months on their submarine. He said it was so tight in there that when they were sleeping 3 in a bunk, and they're stacked up 3, you can't turn over at night. If you want to turn over, you have to get out of the bunk and turn yourself over, and then crawl back in on the right side. You couldn't. There's not enough room. There's not enough room to twist over in the bunk. So it was like a piece of toast. You got to take it out and redo it on the other side. He said when he wanted a really good night's sleep, he would take his blanket and pillow. He would go into the missile room, and he would just lie down on a nuclear missile, with his pillow and blanket, and then he'd get a good night's sleep where he had more room to turn. You just hope nobody pushes the wrong button on the, all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're blasted out in the middle of the night on a nuclear missile. So the idea of being born again, that's what the mikveh is. The mikveh is just, it's an idea of renewal. That's what we're going into. That's what we go into the mikveh for. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Fortunately, go visit a shul. They always learn the part of the mikveh, the measurement.
They learn the Mishnah of Mikveh, the Shiva home. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure. I know they learn it. Some of it has to do with the letters spell something out. The first letters in each Mishnah spell something out. But I'm not positive why they do that. But that's right. They learn Mikvahs. It could be that it has to do with death and impurity because somebody has died. But I'm not. That's only a guess. I'm not sure at all.